Oh,
All right.
I said, yeah, I'm ready. Testing.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to night 2 of our process. Our next candidate, we're here with Ms. Felisha Gould. She's with us from Cleveland Heights, University Heights. So we're so happy to have you here with us tonight and opportunity to share and for us to learn from you. And so for those of you in the room here, thank you so much for being here tonight. We appreciate it. I'm going to start way over here. Back. That's right. Give you an opportunity just to introduce yourself. Let us know if you've got kids in the school, had kids in the school. Just a little bit.
Name is Michael Gould, married to Felisha.
Oh, okay. And why are you here tonight?
I'm able to eat this evening. Yeah, just being supportive of her. And I'm a product of Akron Public School a long time ago. And
So
one of my children just in high school. So I'm just here for support. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So my name is Jada Dancy, and I am also a product of Akron Schools, Gould High School. And I have a son at STEM Middle School in the 8th grade, and I have a senior at STEM High School, which I'm excited about. And I'm PTA president at STEM Middle School.
My name is Alexa Schuler. I have one at Kenmore, Garfield, and one at Bridges, which is one of APS's alternative schools. And I am the Kenmore Garfield Cluster Advisor for the Akron Council PTA.
Hi, I'm Dean Stevens, University of Akron graduate and a native of Youngstown, Ohio. Living here now for about 15 years with my wife and our little girl who is a kindergartner at King CLC.
Thank you.
my name is Flora Dees. I am a retired employee of Akron Public Schools, founding executive director of Project Red Akron.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here.
Of course, I'm here to support candidate.
I'm Kemp Boyd, I'm Executive Director of Love Akron, also the head football coach over at Kenmore Garfield High School.
Hi, my name is Lynn Swoop, and I'm graduate of Firestone High School. And all of my kids actually went to Old Trail School for K-8. I was a board trustee at Old Trail for 3 years. And my middle son, after he left Old Trail, he is now in STEM High School. So that brings me back to Akron Public Schools.
Great. Thank you. Jennifer, welcome. Good to have you back here with us tonight, representing the Beacon Journal. So, thank you all. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hi, my name is Denise Brandon. And my child attends Village South to Florida Art School. And I am the head coach and co-founder of West Akron Track. So I interface with a lot of young adults in the area.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. So, tonight's format, because I know that you were here last night as well, will be the same. We're going to ask Ms. Gould to share her presentation on her vision for leadership for the Akron Public Schools, and then we'll go to questions that have been submitted, shared with us. So there's some good questions for you following the presentation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over.
All right. Thank you to everyone who's here this evening. Again, I thank the Board of Education and the staff and the community of the Akron schools that I am here as a finalist for the superintendent position. Can you hear me? So just thank you for being here this evening. I put the thank you up there as well as the QR code. You can use your phone to scan that. So if you want to take the opportunity to look at the presentation afterward as you're doing the feedback form, you would have the presentation before you. I'm going to start here with public is for all. Our public schools are for all students. As we think about the Akron Public Schools and the work that has been put in currently that is taking place, the vision or mission that I can think of states, as an urban school district which promotes and shows academic achievement for all students, students excelling in and out of the classroom, barriers causing academic and opportunity gaps, using equity as a verb to promote endless possibilities, while partnering with the community to create a model, a wraparound learning model, and a social emotional one that many will come to replicate in the 22nd century. That is the work that I see that is occurring currently in the Akron schools. Public schools have produced much of what we, the public and parents, have expected them to. As you look at this young lady that you see here, you see she looks a little familiar. Behind that smile lies an urban public school student with a mother that expects schools to provide a quality education in a safe environment and prepare her for college. Despite anyone in her family ever attending college or being able to afford it. Her story is that she's from a single parent household and lives below the poverty line. Society and statistics dictate that based on this young lady's story and socioeconomic status, predicts that she has a 47.5% chance of attending college and a 61% chance of getting a job after she graduates. For the young lady in the photo, what researchers did not equate or put as part of the equation is that she doesn't even know she lives below the poverty line. She is surrounded by family, teachers, faith-based organizations, community organizations, and the support system that would instill in her education is the key to unlock endless opportunities. School unlocked for this young lady in the photo the opportunity to be a first-generation college graduate. Full scholarship to the University of Akron in the area of science, being one of the only African-American females in the department. And then to become an environmental specialist. While working as an environmental specialist, the young lady in the photo wanted to give back to her community. At the Akron Urban League, working with students from familiar or similar backgrounds in the areas of reading and math. But little did she know at that time that these opportunities would open doors for her to later be on a path to teach science. We expect public schools to admit all who come to their doors, and we do. After leaving the classroom and becoming a school leader in central office, and several schools with students of similar backgrounds in 3 different communities, this young lady would come to understand that relationships, leading with integrity, being fair, and collaborating with staff, families, and communities will provide a success formula for challenging schools in an arena where resources are lacking, funding is not there, state and federal mandates. We expect schools to provide learning experiences for students of every gender, every race, disability, gifted, at risk, and provide an equal educational opportunity no matter what the child's language proficiency, no matter what the parent's income, and no matter what the achievement level. We do. This story provides an opening to this young lady's core values. Here you will see the core values that have been shaped stories that have been told about the process for the public education. And knowing that the number one core value that this young lady has, children are the first priority. In that support system, that young lady was the first priority. Whether it be our family, whether it was a teacher, whether it was a community organization. Understanding that equity does not mean equal, but an opportunity. Giving the process of this child being able to access that opportunity. Community partners, showing a commitment for us to bridge that gap between school and community. Communities being a support system for students. Classrooms spend an enormous amount of time with students. So they change lives with the amount of time that they spend with students. Because it would be a ninth grade biology teacher that would change the life of that young lady in that photo. Leadership, whether it's on a steering committee, whether it's PTA, council, community organizations, or executive board. We all have things in those leadership opportunities where we have to be held accountable. And these lead to things that we take our core values to, lead to focus areas. These focus areas help to launch success within schools. Combat the processes because they create a systemic alignment. With all of these functioning together, you will have success in school. For my audience here tonight, where you see yourself in this presentation is that definitely you are right there with equity and inclusion. You want endless possibilities for the students and children when they come to our schools. You want those opportunities, you want those choices for them, and you want them to be in an equitable manner and being able to include them. You definitely want safe learning environments. You want custodial staff to provide staff with the clean environment so that students can excel. You want to see our positive behavioral intervention supports where we talk about expectations for students in the schools being implemented, as well as family and community engagement. You want to be engaged in what takes place with your child because you have the most precious commodity that we will have in our schools. And you definitely want the staff to be trained in the latest and greatest things to help support your child in the schools. That is where parents and communities see themselves within that systemic alignment. The core values and the systemic alignment lead me to 3 focus areas for me as a superintendent. I call them the 3 R's. Renew our commitment. Reimagine learning. And reinvigorate stakeholders. So why renew our commitment? This year, Dr. David James announced that he would be retiring at the end of June. Dr. David James has been the superintendent of Akron schools for 13 years. In most school districts, that is unheard of. Most superintendents only have an expectancy in school district from 3 to 5 years. Dr. Ellen McWilliams-Woods will also retire in June. She has led some of the most innovative educational things that have happened within the Akron schools. We have new board members. We have college and career academies. We have an investment of over 300 and some partners in our school. And are there fears of the unknown? Of course there are. Fears that we will not keep what's new and what the new leader may want to take and replace. At the top of all these changes, one thing that we have to also remember, we are still in a pandemic. We still have a pandemic that is occurring. We still have social and racial injustice that is happening and occurring in our neighborhoods and in our communities each day. So this is why there is a focus on renewing our commitment. When we think about reimagining learning, the pandemic has taken us totally out of the box. It has changed our way of thinking. One thing that we have learned from the pandemic is that equity cannot be an afterthought. It has to be at the forefront of all the decisions that we make, all of the resources that we provide, and anything that is needed for the school. As far as learning is concerned, when we handed those students those Chromebooks and we went one-to-one, we tore down every classroom wall that was ever up. We opened up our classrooms, parents opened up their homes, learning became a new way to take place. Kids were sitting at dining room tables, sitting at desks, parents were sitting next to them in that space, but there were no more walls anymore. And parent engagement flourished because you had parents, some of them sitting right next to their learner, while they were also at home trying to work themselves. So the engagement that we see, the school has to support the families. In this pandemic, you think about, we still have families who are in basic needs of food, shelter, and also basic needs to think about trauma that has happened. There has been a lot of deaths that have happened within our families during the pandemic. And then technology. As I said, when we handed that student that Chromebook and said we were going to be one-to-one, who knew that there were going to be opportunity gaps because students would then not be able to access the internet. So with all of this in our thinking, our vision then tells us that we can come up with new measures of success. And that is what is taking place in the Akron Public Schools when we think about our advanced APS 3 and 3. We are looking at new measures of success that are not dictated to us, but we are coming up with those measures that need to take place. We are not waiting on the state to give us a report card and tell us how we did on the report card. We are setting what those measures need to look like for us as we move in the future. Our current situation is the jobs that we are preparing students for. We have to prepare students for future jobs. We cannot prepare students for jobs that have already been in our past. These are the pathways that we create in those college and career academies. What jobs will take place for our future? When we think about reinvigorating our stakeholders, so why reinvigorate our stakeholders? As educators, community leaders, parents, our job is important. Our jobs are important that we collaborate, we work together, because what we do is we influence the lives of many students and have the power to change the course of their lives. So despite everything that is occurring in the world, we want all stakeholders, parents, community, internal stakeholders, teachers, leaders to understand what is my why. So this is why we look at reinvigorating our stakeholders. So how will I go about gathering all of this data that I need to gather in order to help shape the core values and the vision for the district? The first phase of my entry plan looks at a pre-entry transition. In that pre-entry transition, I am meeting with Dr. David James, Dr. Ellen McWilliams, our Chief Financial Officer, Ryan Pendleton, all of our union leadership, to really talk about what is taking place within our schools. What is taking place within our schools? What initiatives do we have going on? Who are our community partners? And what are some things that we need to take a look at? Introduction phase, I'm introducing myself and beginning to establish those relationships with both internal and external stakeholders. Visiting schools, meeting with PTA council, city officials, community groups, cabinet leaders, so that we build the relationship and I introduce myself as a leader in the community. The listening to understand, this is a critical component of the entry point. It's referred to as the listening tool. There are intentional meetings that are held with members of various constituent groups. School board, administration, teachers, support staff, custodial, building and grounds, transportation, parents, students, union leadership, community. During these meetings, excuse me, an opportunity is created to listen and to learn, and to begin to capture that critical feedback, perceptions, and information to develop a picture about both our past and our present reality. These are intentional meetings. They may be town hall meetings, they may be one-on-one meeting. The key question, what are the strengths and what is working? What are the challenges that we see? Speak to me about communication, as well as what are the opportunities for the district. Taking the pre-entry information, the introductory phase, and the listening to understand lead to making sense of the report. The collective results from the listening to understand phase, these findings are coupled with data that is gathered from our school district. Data that we gather in academic outcomes, as well as survey information. It's used to create that picture of the present realities in order to help inspire a collective vision for our future. In the last phase, making sense of that report then provides us some goal areas that we may need to work on. They may be short-term goals, they may be long-term goals. But then in the engaging of the stakeholders, we know exactly who needs to be at the table, who needs to be working alongside of us in order to gather and move forward in the plan. So I want to take this opportunity because people ask, where do I fit in on this plan? These are all the people in that listening to understand. And you will see tonight, you see that right there in that circle, there's parent groups. There's parents groups because, again, you send to us the most prized possession that help keep our doors open. You entrust in us each and every day with the lives of your children. You entrust that we will provide for them a quality education, a safe learning environment, and we will prepare them for what happens next in their lives. Ask, what type of leader are you? I had the opportunity to ask the staff that I'm currently working with, and there's a word that consistently came up, but it helped me to force this around a quote from Amanda Gorman. And it says, while we might feel small, separate and all alone, our people have never been more tightly tethered. The question is not if we will weather this unknown, but how will we weather the unknown together? And the word that was selected is collaborative. In order to get this work done, Felisha cannot do it alone. Felisha will need the collective information, the collective partnership from each and every one of you that are in this room tonight. What I can tell you is that it will be led with integrity, it will be led with fairness, and it will be led with open eyes. So working together to help us achieve the 3 areas that need to be looked at as part of the vision of making a renewed commitment, reimagining our learning, and reinvigorating our stakeholders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gould. now to questions that have been submitted. We have a lot of them here. I want to get to as many as I possibly can. Really hit on the main themes of the questions that have been submitted. So I'm going to start with this one. APS has multiple languages spoken throughout the district, particularly within the North Cluster. To date, it has been unable to accomplish the task of placing full-time interpreters in many of the buildings where they are needed. So doing so would greatly increase the success of those students. How would you make that a priority, and what steps would you take in the district to address this issue?
So, with any student achievement, I will say that taking a look or conducting a needs assessment. Conducting a needs assessment around exactly where the students are as we look at the data and saying if they are achieving or not achieving. Looking at exactly in that needs assessment, what resources are we providing for those students? If you have a student that has English as a second language, one of the things is also what type of partnership do we have with some of the community organizations that are helping us with those students, and how can we get them to assist in also providing services within our school? And most of our schools, I'm not sure exactly how it's spread out here, just based on the question, that students who are coming in as English language learners and they are not excelling, then I would say, yes, let's look at making sure that they have an interpreter, as well as also make sure that they have a tutor. And if that person serves both roles, that would be great, so that we can help students successfully navigate in a new learning environment, also with a language barrier. So the
Thank you.
needs assessment is how you find out exactly what the resources are that are needed.
Thank you. Parent engagement and involvement is something that APS has repeatedly says it would like to improve. How would you respond to parents, caregivers who say that they simply have too much on their plate to be involved? What ideas do you have for programs, resources, etc., to make APS more parent, caregiver friendly?
Well, first of all, in the listening to tour, I have to ask parents, how do they see involvement? What is involvement to the parent? You know, sometimes parent involvement is not always being at the school, but how do you even help to support in whatever environment that you are? So first I would start with asking parents, what do they see as parent involvement? I shared in the session before that I've also used a framework known as the Epstein model. And in that Epstein model, it has 6 particular frames that connect the parent and the community, the parent and the educational system in one. And in using that model, there's a portion of that model that talks about learning to home, and how the parents see themselves as helping students in that educational mix. One thing that I can say that if parents can't make now, one thing that I've talked about is that we've torn down those walls. You can have a PTA meeting now virtual at noon when everybody's at lunch, or at a snack break. So there are just different ways that we can think about how do we actively get parents involved based on what they're saying they can do as far as involvement, and define what we really mean by parent involvement. I think that's the key thing. We keep thinking that parent involvement means one thing, and we really need to have a clear definition about what that means for the Akron school.
Thank you. Here's an interesting scenario-based question.
Okay.
You are at the engagement center when a parent comes in asking what steps he or she needs to take because they will be switching their child to a charter school due to their dissatisfaction with APS. How would you respond to or approach that parent? Would you try to convince the parent to give APS another chance? Why or why not?
With any student who's leaving our school, I'm definitely going to approach that parent and find out exactly why are you exiting, the Akron Public Schools? I'll set up a meeting with that parent, even after they leave. If they're actually exiting on that particular day. I would still set up a meeting with that parent, having the opportunity to sit down, talk to them, and find out exactly, what is this charter school actually offering you that you're not seeing, in the Akron Public Schools? Until we actually start to sit and actually have those courageous conversations about why are parents leaving our schools, why are parents not being involved, we will continue to make guesses about what things are happening. We have to have those crucial and critical conversations so that we gather that feedback in order to make us, whether it be marketing, whether it be taking a look at what is being offered in that school, so that that parent understands that we are really going to do a wraparound approach for our students. But yes, definitely, I'm going to ask, talk to that parent if they're leaving our school.
Thank you. In a world focused on STEM and a district centered on college and career readiness, what role do the fine and performing arts play in the education of all students, not just those that attend the performing arts schools?
This is a question we had in the last.
Very similar, yeah.
Yes. The arts play a very important role. Me, myself, being an art student, I played an instrument from 3rd grade all the way up through college. It helps not only to navigate the other side of the brain for a child, but actually brings out another creativity for them. One of the things that I shared earlier is that when I think about the arts, if I'm thinking about it from the elementary level, I would say that we start students early in the arts. We start them early in the music. We start them early in foreign language. We start them early in STEM. And I'm just not talking about for the high schools that are, or the schools that are designated for that. We take a look at that approach across our district, because if we look at society, those things are happening in our society at more of a rapid rate. For the middle school, you're doing the same thing, offering them those arts type courses and everything that will lead them to think about a pathway that they may take or either be interested in as they move into the high school area. And then you have a pathway that is created for them to be able to advance in. So that's looking at it from a K through 12 type approach. So the arts are very important.
Thank you. I am an Akron resident and an educator in a neighboring district. It seems today that so much emphasis is placed on looking ahead and not always allowing kids, especially high school students, to enjoy all schools have to offer. On college and career readiness, how important is it to ensure students still have a well-balanced school experience? How would you make this a priority?
Just today, I had the opportunity to sit and talk to some high school students. And I said to them that the one thing as a leader, definitely making sure that I talk to the youth. Again, asking them, what are those things that they would like to see in some of the pathways? What are some things that you see that you're needing as a support? The feedback that I got today from them is that they want to have pathways that they are, the ones that were in the pathways that I met with, they're happy about those pathways, but they also told me about there's some pathways that we might need to rethink. So having that conversation with them and assessing those needs again about what needs to take place in our school. Again, the crucialness of this is really having the conversation. We've got to come to the table with the right people at the table, having a conversation about what is happening with education. Once we have that information, which is crucial to our success, because the more that we have things that students are interested in, the more they're going to participate in school, the more they're going to be motivated about school, the more they're going to attend school, and the more they're going to excel in school. So definitely having that conversation with students. Also in that will as well that I shared.
Great, thank you. What innovative approaches would you hope to employ to address budget constraints while preserving the excellent programs that this school district currently has in place?
So, in the budgeting process, if we're gonna be true about equity, we have to have a true conversation about what equity looks like across every facet of the organization. And in the budgeting process, we have to take a look at exactly, how are we doing, our budgeting process? What schools are receiving what and why? And are those monies actually tied to exactly, to support the program and the program needs? So in the budgeting process, I would say, looking at what I call a decision framework. And in that decision framework, you're looking at how things are, what outcomes are these things going to provide? How does it benefit that particular school? And how is it going to align to exactly what that school has aligned as a priority for them? So in looking at that and working alongside of the chief financial officer, and as the advanced APS 3 and 3 plan says, one of the things is to look at the fiscal stability and the resources that are being provided in our schools. So definitely, we have to take a look, an audit. We need to do a needs assessment, and from that, we're able to then set whatever goals we need to, and understand if our schools are truly not receiving equitable resources. Because right now, we can say that they're not receiving equitable resources, but until we do that audit, we really don't know.
Here's something that every educator has to deal with. How would you handle decisions that are unpopular with the public, but educationally necessary?
Ooh, okay. You know, as a leader, there are always going to be decisions that people are not going to agree with. You have to make the decision that is based on the actual information that you gather. You have to make sure that you have talked to all the stakeholders that you need to talk to in that process in order to make that decision. And then you make the decision based on the greater outcome for the good. So definitely, there are going to be decisions that people are definitely not going to always agree with. But if you are communicating it effectively, you're bringing people to the table who need to be at the table, you're gathering your research and your information, and then you're also providing the board with exactly what's going to happen, especially if you already know it's going to be something that's controversial or challenging for the district. You just have to do your research up front because with any leader, that is something that just comes with leadership. Everyone is not going to be happy about decisions that are made, but just making sure that those things happen, they're communicated effectively, and that the right people are at the table to help with that and gathering all the information that you need.
Okay, thank you. The majority of APS are on the low performance and voucher list, some going on 10 years. How do you plan to tackle that? This is the question that has been asked the most in our polling data. So this is from the PTA.
Okay. Yes, vouchers are definitely a problem. As I look at our fiscal budget and I see the amount of dollars that are leaving our school district, and actually, I'll be honest with you, the same amount of dollars that are leaving out of this school district for Ed Choice is the same amount of dollars that are leaving out of the school district I'm currently in. The amount of dollars that are leaving out of the district for charter schools is unbelievable. The only way that we can change exactly those dollars that are leaving out is that we have to produce academic excellence. We have to produce academic outcomes. What has happened in Ohio is that they have tied academic outcomes to the funding that happens within our school. So we have to produce the academic outcomes. The other thing is we have to truly advocate. And I love that the district has set up an advocacy page where you can just simply go on there, fill it out, send it off to your legislator. Everyone, we can do a campaign around that. Something else that is very strategic and powerful is if we can have students from the APS actually go and lobby before state legislators and talk about the impact of vouchers. The other is to have a parent group actually go and have that conversation in front of legislators about vouchers. We can work with our parents and our other community groups to actually form teams where we can truly advocate on behalf of public schools, because we don't have a problem with people having a choice. We have a problem that people are taking tax dollars and making that choice to go somewhere else.
Great, thank you. Describe a time you were given an educational or equity metric to turn around towards success. What challenges did the project face? How did you set objectives? What were the key results?
So one of the areas where there was a challenge was that we had the lack of minority students in our advanced placement courses. When we were visiting classrooms, it was very visible in a district that is 70 to 80% minority. And you go into a classroom and you would see 1 to 3 students who were sitting in the class. So one of the challenges were that it had historically happened. When we went to pull the data to look at this, it was not something that just had recently happened. It had been happening historically. And so from there, we would have to gather all this data, start to look at our current practices for how students enter into the classes, what were some of our support systems that we had in place, and what was going to be the long-term objective. What were we looking at on how many students were we really trying to have enter into those advanced placement courses? That's, you said the objective, and then what was the other part of the question?
The other part of the question is, what were the key results?
The key results, after partnering with an organization called Equal Opportunity Schools, from there, they would train our staff around equity practices in the classroom. Our students would then create a problem-based approach around how they would help to recruit students getting into the class. They would hold AP fairs. They would hold buddy systems of people who were already in the class, where they would actually go out and recruit. Our teachers would then work on summer bridge programs that would help our students have a push ahead, where they would actually work with them on what was going to take place in the AP class, as well as the teachers then rearrange their schedules to be available at certain times to support students once they were in the class. With all of these initiatives around AP, we ended up having the number of our minority students increase, as well as all of our students who were receiving grades of 3, 4, and 5 on advanced placement courses to increase. And we were just awarded an award last year from the College Board.
Thank you. Here's one that's very similar to the last session. What do you consider to be your greatest contribution to the district or districts you've worked in? And in light of that, what do you feel you can bring to our district?
I would say that the greatest contribution that I've contributed to the district is helping everyone come to the table in a collaborative effort around student success. And the example that I'll share with you is during the pandemic, I had to facilitate both an elementary and a secondary, what I call reopening schools committee. It would not just be educators on this committee. It wasn't just going to be teachers. It just wasn't going to be directors, curriculum people, all of that. We had to bring to the table transportation, human resources, business and operations, all of child nutrition. All of these people had to come together at the table. We would start meeting May of 2020 And we would meet every week up until the time that we opened schools, in August. And in that meeting, we would have focus areas that we wanted to talk about. We wanted to talk about what was operations gonna look like. What were our safety protocols going to be? What was gonna be the instructional model once we opened up a school? Were kids gonna be learning remotely? Were the kids gonna be in person? Or was the teacher actually going to be teaching both the kids that were at home and in person at the same time? So in doing that process, that collective effort, I would say, has led to many other things that are now occurring in the district. That collaborative process has now led to a process where all of those people who we were meeting with are now meeting with principals every Friday and giving them updates from their department. So it has created that systemic alignment that we needed to have both the business side of the organization and the educational side actually come together. So principals get that. Now, all of that managerial stuff that was part of the principals meeting is gone. And so when you have principals now in their monthly meetings, they can actually focus in on those things that they need to around challenges or things that they want to advance in their schools. It also led to we were working with National Network Partners of Schools System is organization around making sure that there is family engagement occurring. Helpful to what we need to do in our schools, and so our family coordinator is now able to really work with our school leaders around family engagement. So just the start of a pandemic brought people together that really needed to always be sitting at the table together. So I'll say that my most successful thing is making sure that that collaboration happens.
Okay, thank you. Akron has accomplished much through stable leadership, and many people in central office were first APES teachers, parents, and/or students. How do you plan to build upon the existing structures while introducing your own initiatives?
As I said before, the key thing is looking at what's going to happen in that entry plan. Pre-transition going to look like? What is that introduction? Where I'm introducing myself and working with the leaders that have been here. There are great things that are happening in Akron Public Schools, and we want to continue to build upon them. I'm not a leader that's going to come in and say, oh, get rid of this, get rid of it. I'm not that type of leader. We are going to celebrate our successes, and we are going to build upon those successes. If we have successful leadership in place, we're going to keep successful leadership in place and continue to use the history, use the influences and everything that they have created for us to learn from. Because if they have a model of success, we definitely want to build on that. The entry plan that I shared, that third phase is such a critical phase when I'm listening to understand. I'm listening to them to talk about what our current realities are and what we've learned from our past and where we can go from there. So that's, to me, building that leadership cycle and the support that they need to move forward.
Thank you. There's a follow-up to this as well. What is one example of a big idea that you might try to accomplish to highlight APS as a leader in education across the state and country? On to that big idea.
That big idea, oh goodness, there's so many things that could be shared across the state. Right now, since we are looking at revamping, we actually have revamped our schools, especially our high schools. There's only, I think, one other place that has done a lot around the college and career academies. I think looking at those college and career academies about what happens within our elementary, our middle, and our high, and showing our academic success as we go through that matriculation from pre-K to 12 is one of the biggest things that we can highlight, because we have actually we've taken down those walls and actually brought community into our buildings where students are actually getting an experience that is going to help them also thrive within the community and give back, as well as go on to college, military, or the workforce. So that's one of the things that I would highlight as our success.
On the subject of the college and career academies, how will students in grades 6 through 8 be affected in your vision for the future of APS?
Based on the college and career
Yeah.
academies?
The college and career academies.
Okay, how would they be affected?
How will the students in grades 6 through 8 be affected in your vision for the future of APS?
I'll say that they'll be affected successfully. I'm trying to get the gist of that one. I'll say successfully because we're seeing success with what we have in the high school. And so however we're looking at building the model for middle school, it sounds to me, what I've read and research is that we're looking at creating a smaller learning community for middle school students. It's almost like you're gonna take a child and I'm gonna have the same 4 teachers all the time. So I am building the most critical relationship around those 4 teachers. I'm gonna have the same English teacher, math, science, social studies. And then I'm gonna have a career exploration elective. It's building that relationship that happens in that small learning community. Now, I don't know if the community actually travels or what we call looping. So I don't know if the kids start in 6th grade and then when they move to 7th grade, they have the same teacher in 8th grade. I'm not sure about that. But that relationship that is built in that small learning community, this kid now has a trusted adult in the building that they can come to with anything that is happening to them. They know exactly, parents know exactly, these are the 4 teachers that I have to have engagement with, or I have to meet with regarding my child's education. That small learning community is key to the success, especially for a middle school student when we know that adolescence is happening to them during that time. So the more consistent we are in their learning, the better for them. So I see it as success.
Thank you. All of the buildings were redesigned as CLCs, Unique Learning Centers. How would you envision the role of these hubs realistically extending to offer health and social services or arts and cultural programming to the community in the aftermath of the pandemic?
So that's what the buildings were actually set up for. That's what a CLC really is to look at what are the wraparound services that can be provided. Again, looking at what are the wraparound services that are needed for that actual community. What are the things that they're going to engage in the school? So the wraparound services could vary just based on what cluster it may be in, but if you look at whatever the need is, and then you have the willingness of partners already that are already partnering with the school to look at housing those in our community learning centers. They were always supposed to be the community being able to come in and use those facilities.
Thank you. The merger of the Kenmore Garfield cluster was not without controversy. What steps would you take to try to help unify those 2 communities, knowing that they were once rivals?
So I can tell you, when I was the principal of East, it was not without controversy to merge that middle school and the high school together. One of the key things that I can tell you that we did is that we met with parents. We listened to their concerns. We had them assist us with what they really wanted to see happen when that merger took place. We then met with teachers. We heard their concerns because they were also concerned about the merger as well. But having that conversation with the people who are being impacted in that situation and putting in some systems that will actually help support them. I know one of the things that I'll say that was key for us is really that parent meeting and just to hear what their concerns were from that meeting. And really trying to help bridge those two communities around understanding that there are things that can happen in the school that can be remnants of both of them flourishing at the same time. There are things that could be flourishing around what Cardinals did. There are things that could be flourishing around what the Rams did. And it could be situated in the building so that everyone sees themselves in that building as they come together. But it is going to be key happen so that you understand exactly what the concerns are, the concerns from the students, concerns from the family, and the concerns from the staff, because they're going to have to live there each and every day.
Thank you. What is your experience with special education? What is your understanding regarding best practices in helping the families of special education students feel welcome, wanted, and included in the district?
So, give me the first part of that again,
Okay.
Rusty?
What is your experience with special education?
Okay.
And-
Okay, let me take that one first.
Okay,
So my experience with special education is that every school that I've been a school leader of, I have had a special education population. So I've always, with any family, wanted them to feel welcome, feel heard, and always wanted them to be at the table when we are discussing and making decisions about their child. So I've always had that type of leadership or what I would call an open door with our families. From a district level, I deal with special education from the district lens in my particular role now. And I look at, what services are we truly being able to provide for families in our schools. I'm looking at what models or what we call continuum of learning services that we provide for families. All of the students actually accessing the general education classroom. How are they accessing that general education classroom? Are we making sure that our teachers are truly in what we call a co-teaching model? That both of them are leaders in the classroom and how they're working with students. So from a district lens, that's the way I look at it. From a principal lens, looking at it, and also from an aunt lens, because I have a nephew that is a special needs student. So I am at the table advocating for his services, knowing what he can get. So working with parents, we have parent groups. We actually have parent support groups for our families of special needs, so that the parents actually understand how to navigate and also advocate for their child at the same time. And one thing that I would always instill in the teachers that are working with students with disabilities, I would always tell them, you are their biggest advocate. So you have to advocate on their behalf as well. So teaching parents how to advocate, providing that support system for them, as well as from a district lens, making sure that the resources and opportunities are available for our students with disabilities.
one last question.
Okay.
Tell us about someone who has someone who has been an important mentor to you and how they influenced your leadership style.
Whew. I stand on the shoulders of many, you guys, many. I can think of many people who have mentored me. Actually, as I stand in this building, one of my biggest mentors was Dr. Sylvester Small. He took a chance on me, as someone who is not from Akron, to actually lead one of the largest initiatives that would happen within the schools, and that was the Mae Jemison Project. It was a $5 million project where we would look at having STEM across all of our buildings. I stand on the shoulders of Gene Scruggs, who is a lifetime educator in the schools, who would be my first principal, as I taught, at, the Akron, Saturn, which was one of our at-risk, places where students would come, and he would, show me the ropes about, how, to work with students, because he had been working with youth, that were at risk for years. I stand on the shoulders of Dr. Flora Randall Novella Dees, over there, who would, we all know where she lives, okay? But just actually, making sure that we put children first, no matter what. So there are so many names that I could go through that have been mentors for me. And I've always wanted to make them proud, because like I said, they took a chance on me. And I want to continue to mentor others, as I continue on my journey in education as well.
Thank you so much. We so appreciate you being here tonight, sharing with us. For all of you in the room, it's a tremendous level of gratitude for you being here and being a part of this. We're going to do this again tomorrow night with our next candidate. So
I won't be here tomorrow.
we hope you. No, we will make you come back. Also, again, the feedback sheets are so important to the board. That's really what they're looking for from you. So I also understand that there are computers set up out here with those. that
Yeah,
you
there
can
are
stop
on the tables as you go out.
Yeah, yeah. So make use of those, or when you can, please return that feedback. And again, thank you all. Beautiful sunny night. I hope you can get out and enjoy a little bit of it.
Thank you so much for coming this evening. Thank you so much.
And I've been asked to ask you to leave out that door, just to keep it slow. Wow. Thank you.